All right, guys, welcome back to another video on MMA.Unhinged. Today we're joined by Titan FC welterweight champion of the world, Dilano. Taylor, how's it going?
It's going pretty great. It's going pretty great. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much for asking. Thank you for joining the show today. It's an absolute pleasure. I know you got a busy schedule being the champion for Titan FC and all that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'll start off with the fight, obviously, with Marcus Edwards. It was the first defense of your Titan FC championship. Does that bring a little bit more pressure heading into the fight?
Yeah, actually, it did. This was definitely the first time I felt. I wouldn't say the first time because getting the title was like the first time I really felt serious pressure. But this time it was a different level of pressure because it's like now that I have it, everybody's coming after me. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that was a pretty much a good segue into my next question. Did it not load? It felt more important because I know every fight is important for you in your career, but did it feel more important because everyone in that division, they're coming for you? You're the guy at the top.
Yeah, it felt like I wouldn't say more important because in my head now, my mindset is a fight is just a fight. Like I think of every title defense as just me earning the title again and proving to myself that I am deserving of being the champion. So having people come up to the top and making me feel like I'm the one being chased is kind of nice for once, not having to chase somebody, Like being chased is a little better than, having to be chased. I mean, or having to chase.
Mm-hmm. That famous saying, "You're the hunter, you're not hunting," sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about your first defense against Marcus Edwards. It was a successful one. It did go to the scorecards, but I want to talk about what happened in the fight a little bit. And in that first round, there was a guillotine. Was at any trouble? Was that in at any moment? Was that in? Was you worried about that?
No, not at all. Primarily because me personally, I know for a fact that guillotines and rear naked chokes are probably the two highest percentage uh, submissions in MMA. So I drill those specifically the most because I mean the odds of you really going for a heel hook standing or going for a standing choke are very minimal. But a guillotine, if I shoot in, you'll probably go for it, or you'll probably jump on the guillotine if you are desperate. And I like desperate people because then they make mistakes. For instance, he went for the guillotine and he was on his back. And the first thing he had to think to himself was, oh, now I got to get up because now he's going to be on top of me. I'm a jiu-jitsu brown belt. And I'm not like one of those brown belts who are like, like the fake brown belts. I'm an actual brown belt. So I'm pretty sure he recognized that from the minute he got up. The first time after I took him down, he was like, "Oh shit, he's on my back. I don't want to be here." He didn't want to go back to the ground after that, especially after that second guillotine attempt, that first guillotine attempt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a fantastic fight, as I was mentioning. It went to the scorecards, 25 minutes, 5 rounds, wasn't it? In any moment in that fight, you landed some good shots, he landed some good shots, and he landed a really good spinning wheel kick, and you took it like a champ. Was there anything in that fight that, worried about you with his strikes?
That I was worried about?
Yeah.
No, the only thing that I was worried about was and I wouldn't even say worried. It wasn't even like a serious worry. It's the awkwardness that he brought to the fight. Because watching his fights, watching his previous fights, I seen that like he threw a lot of crazy stuff, but I didn't expect him to be that awkward in the fight. It was almost like he was just winging everything he was doing. There was like nothing pre-planned, or he was just doing whatever he could do to potentially get a finish. So he threw the spinning wheel kick. It didn't land, by the way. It hit my elbow. So I covered it up. It hit my elbow, and then he threw it again. I missed that completely. He threw it like some total of like 3 or 4 times. He missed it every single time. The only one that landed was the one on the elbow, which looked like it hit clean, but it didn't. The only shot that hit clean was in the third round towards the end. It was like the last, I want to say 15 seconds. He throws I remember the combination actually. He throws a head kick, he throws a right head kick, and then he throws an overhand to right overhand. Or no, I'm sorry. He throws a right head kick and a left overhand. That hit me. And it didn't stun me. It was just the fact that when he threw it and it connected, I was like, okay, that shit's good. Let me reset my feet. But he thought it was more so I was hurt because then when I came out in the fourth round, I put more pressure on him, and in the fifth round, I put even more pressure on him, and I started putting my combinations together a lot better in the fourth and fifth rounds. Honestly, the third round, I was piecing up the whole time actually, from what I
Yeah,
remember.
Yeah, you mentioned there you were landing your shots, and it was quite a slow start to the fight. I want to say the first and second round was quite slow. I feel like you were getting your feet together, as you were mentioning. Did you kind of see that fight playing out like that, being slow and you being throwing a lot of feints? I was watching the fight this morning. You were throwing a lot of feints, trying to catch him off guard, and as you mentioned, he's awkward. He throws everything with 100% power. He doesn't let anything loose. You're just there, standing there, and I feel like the feints really played a critical factor in this fight, which kind of won you the fight because he didn't know when you were coming in. Did you kind of work on that, and did you know this was going to happen in this fight? Is a lot of feints going to win you the fight?
One thing I do when I train for fights, or just one thing I do when I train in general, is I train skills. I don't train specifically for anybody that I'm fighting. I have this mentality in my head that on any given day, short notice or whatever, I can fight anybody because I train skills. I don't train to fight the person in front of me. I do literally a combination of everything when I train. Like I'll come in the gym an hour before everybody, and I'll just hit the bag, and I'll shadow box for 7 rounds, 5-minute rounds, and I'll just work southpaw, work orthodox, I work my feints on both sides, I work everything on both sides, because at the end of the day, what if I do have to take a fight on short notice, or what if I do have an opponent and they pull out and they give me a short notice opponent? I don't know anything about his style. I don't have enough time to watch skills on him or anything like that. But if I train skills 24/7, I'll never feel worried. I'll never feel afraid. I'll never feel, discouraged when it's time to step in there against anyone and really put hands on somebody. So the feints is just something I that's like a daily practice. That's like a daily drill that I do. Like I feint everybody to death. I feint all day. My mentality is to be able to feint for 7 5-minute rounds without getting exhausted, because feinting is probably one of the harder things to do in a fight as opposed to throwing the punch, because feints low key win fights if you really pay attention to MMA like that. Like for instance, Israel Adesanya is a good example. When he throws feints, people bite on his feints so hard that when he throws that next shot, it hurts a lot more because they're not prepared for it. For instance, when he fought Paulo Costa, I don't know if you've seen that fight.
Yeah, I did watch that fight, and as you mentioned, there, he's the master of kickboxing, etc. But so I'm guessing this is how you expected the fight to go against Marcus Edwards.
No, actually, I expected that flush head kick that I kept throwing. From I think I was orthodox. No, I was southpaw when I was throwing it initially, but I was actually planning on going jab from southpaw, up knee, jab, head kick, and I started throwing that combination later on in the fight. It landed a couple times, but he had a chin on him. He had a chin on him as well because he ate a couple of those knees. Like I was throwing those knees pretty hard, and the head kicks I was throwing, it was maybe like a smidge too short, considering like I'm like 6'3", but still it was a smidge too short. So yeah, he covered it up just at the last second, but every time I felt it connect, I could tell like his confidence started to like slowly decrease, and he stopped wanting to rush in. And the only way he could really get in is if he like lunged at me, not rush, but just lunge, like throw his body into everything and make me really think. But my another one of the things that I really focus on for this camp and this fight is just staying locked in, staying focused, staying like tunneled in for 29 minutes of a fight. Because realistically speaking, if you count the minute break for the fight, you're never really outside of the fight. You're just taking a minute break, but you're still in the fight, So that minute recovery, that minute rest, that's so pivotal. That's so important. And people don't train that. People don't pay attention to those little details of a fight. So like you say 25 minutes, I'm thinking in my head 29, 30 minutes, because I'm really locked in there for about 30 minutes of a fight and have to really stay locked in and stay focused for about 30 minutes. And not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah, you were mentioning these there, and the commentary team, Charles Rosa, they mentioned that you might have learned them from Tyrone Spong. Was they correct?
Yeah, Tyrone.
Because he's the master of knees and stuff like that.
Yeah, Tyrone is another guy that I would spar in the gym, and he's a scary dude. But I remember the first time I sparred him, he dropped me. He dropped me with a body shot with the knee, and like he's one of two people in the gym who've actually dropped me with a body shot. I lied, three people. Gilbert dropped me one time with a stab kick to the body when I first came in the gym. Jason Jackson dropped me with the body. Yeah, Jason Jackson dropped me with a hook to the body once. Probably twice. I'll give him credit. I give him credit. And Tyrone dropped me twice to the body once, with a knee, and he faked the uppercut and threw like a straight jab to the solar plex, yo. But I remember when I got hit with those shots, I was like, fuck, like, yo, I don't want to get hit with that again. So ever since then, I've just been really trying to develop my skills to where like I could at least match those skills and be aware of what they can throw. So that way, when it's time for me to throw something, I'm not like worried or afraid.
And now we've mentioned him, I want to quickly bring him up and talk about him because he's got a big fight coming up in Eagle FC against Sergey Karatonov. So it'll be interesting to see, how he gets on from. He had a big break, didn't he, away from MMA, but he's been active inside, kickboxing and boxing. So how do you see Tyrone Spong, your teammate, getting on?
I mean, Tyrone Spong is the king of fighting. There's a reason why he's the king of fighting. I see him doing exactly the same thing he's geared to do. One thing about Tyrone is that he's had so many fights. The fear that normal people would have. I mean, he still has, like, I feel like if you don't have that level of fear or that level of anxiety in your head, you kind of don't want to fight anymore. Like, he still has that. Like, he's definitely prideful and he definitely does not want to lose. But his focus on how he trains for a person, I feel like it's different. It's on a different level. And I feel like the skills that he has and how he trains the skills that he wants to use specifically for a fight is completely different. I don't think that fight will go to a decision because Tyrone's a big finisher, I
Yeah.
think Tyrone will finish him.
Yeah, it's guaranteed to not go to a finish. Sergey Karatonov as well. He's got some good boxing, and then we don't have to talk about Tyrone Spong. I'm pretty sure he's got one of the heaviest leg kicks I've ever seen inside of kickboxing, and his hands as well. He's got hands of steel. I'm pretty sure you've felt the leg kicks.
I felt the leg kicks, yeah. Even when you check the leg kicks, you feel the leg kicks. So yeah.
Yeah, he kicks like an absolute truck. So I'm interested to see how he gets on with his return back to MMA. But we'll return back to you and your fight. Did you wish you'd done something differently in this fight to get that finish? Maybe.
Me? Do I wish I did something differently?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I went back to watch the fight, I wish I noticed that there were certain times in the fight where I was pressing him, and when he got back to the cage, I pulled back a little bit, more so just using my fight IQ because I know he's one of those guys who's like kind of spazzy, or whenever he's backed against the corner, he goes for broke. He just throws whatever he can, and hopefully something lands. So I was more so being aware of what he would potentially throw. So I was expecting off the cage him to do a Superman punch, like how Anthony Pettis knocked out Wonderboy. And I wasn't trying to be in that position. So I was more so trying to cut him off, keep him against the cage. But I felt like had I just kept pressing the action, threw more up knees, because he dipped his head a lot. If I threw more up knees, I would have landed an up knee. I would have ended the flush up knee that I would have needed to finish the fight. If I kept feigning the up knee and then going to a head kick, I felt like I would have finished the fight. But I just wasn't like pulling the trigger enough because he was very wily. Like he wasn't very. I couldn't predict specifically what he was gonna do. He was just running around in a circle. In that whole fight, in my opinion, I feel like when I watched it, he ran around a lot, and I felt like the decision they gave the fight didn't make any sense because it's not like, he did the most damage in the fight. Like I really was like controlling the whole fight, but I don't know. It was very interesting to watch. Of course, objectively, from an outside looking in perspective.
Well, that was pretty much my next question. It did go to the scorecards. It was a split decision. That was the first one of your career, and I was just going to ask you, did you agree to them scorecards? But I kind of feel like you've just gave that answer.
No, I did not agree with that. But I mean, it's the sport of MMA, and honestly, at the end of the day, I still won the fight, and this split decision doesn't take away from what I'm actually capable of or what I have actually accomplished in the sport thus far. I'm only 24. I'm just getting started, so it's just a growing pain, if you could say.
100%. As you mentioned, you're only 24 years old and 24 years of age. I feel like this is a massive experience for you in this fight. What do you feel like you've learned most from the fight against Marcus Edwards?
I think the most I've learned from this fight is I'm very patient. That's one. Two, my ability to stay super focused in a fight is next level. Definitely championship level material. definitely next level type of material. Um, and three, definitely been working more, or definitely need to work more on capitalizing on opportunities when presented to me. I'm very present in the fight, but from what I've seen, that's not my best performance. Like how I perform in the gym and how I performed in that fight are two different Delanos. It's not the same. So definitely need to be more physically present and able to capitalize on opportunities when they are presented to me.
So heading into that fourth and the fifth round, you believe you were up on the scorecards?
Oh, 100%. The only shot he really caught me with was that last shot in the third round, and then after that he stopped pressing the action. I could tell he was like very tired from the beginning. So seeing that was more than enough to tell me that I was winning that fight. Like I wasn't breathing hard per round. I wasn't hurt, you know. I mean that one shot he hit me with was like, all right, cool. But besides that, what was there? What was there that he actually did that was very pivotal in the fight? I'm not gonna take away from his fighting ability. I'm not gonna take away from, what he's done in the sport in his era. But realistically speaking, what did he do? You know?
He threw a lot of spinning wheel kicks, a lot of bombs at you as well. But you evaded most of them, I've got to say.
Yeah.
Not many that connected clean. As you mentioned, that wheel kick did come close in that second round, and that guillotine. Yeah, but it was a fantastic fight. I liked it. So our last question on the fight before we move on to some different questions. An overall summary of your performance.
An overall summary of my performance, I give myself a C+. Like I said, if I have to grade it on a grading scale, I give myself a C+ because that's not the best version of myself at all. And you guys have yet to see like me really mix it up, like really mix it up, really put everything together, really showcase my skills. So far, I've just been really just testing myself a little at a time, trying to understand what I'm best at, or what I can bring to the table when it's time to bring to the table. But you guys have really yet to see me put it all together. I mean, you saw a fight where my last fight was another 5-round fight where I just grappled the guy for primarily the whole fight. And then this fight was another fight where you guys basically just seen me strike a guy for 5 rounds. So you guys have barely seen anything yet. The best is yet to come.
A very unorthodox guy as well, as we were talking. He's very wild and that stuff. So do you feel like you're going in the right path to become, an all-round fighter?
100%, 100%. Little by little, I feel like every fight I've gotten significantly better, drastically better. I mean, I took a little break, enjoyed the holidays, took 2 weeks off, came back to the gym and was like, I never missed a day.
So we'll move on now. We'll talk about some other topics. So in 2021, it was a great year for you and your career. You went 3-0. You won a belt. You defended the belt. So is that what you expected at the start of the year? Could the year went any better?
Could the end of the year went any better?
No, could have the year you went 3-0 and you got the belt and you defended the belt. Could the year went any better?
Could have went any better? Yeah, I could have had 5 fights as opposed to 3. I had 2 fights fall through. So, yeah.
So you would like 5 fights instead of 3? I like that. I like the answer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. In my head, I think to myself, just because I'm the champion doesn't mean I can't be active.
I agree.
Yeah.
I want to say something.
24.
Yeah, exactly. You're 24 years of age. It's crazy. And before the fight, you said a call from the UFC will happen with a win, 10 million%. You mentioned that they are getting the postman. You're going to deliver for them, and you're good at fighting. But I feel like you will be even better on the mic in years to come. And that little post-fight speech when you're saying delivery, I loved it. I think it was perfect fitting. I loved it. And do you feel like the time is now, the right time now for the UFC?
I mean, I'm in no rush to get to the UFC. Me personally, I would rather develop. I'd rather take maybe 2 or 3 more fights on a regional scene, become 10-0. I mean 10-1. I'm sorry, 10-1. Go into the UFC, very experienced, very seasoned. Not too green. Because I see a lot of guys that get into UFC so early, and they're not really ready for the high level competition mentally. They're not like mentally prepared for what they have to do to stay in the UFC. It's one thing to get into the UFC, but it's another thing to stay in the UFC. I'm not trying to be one of those one and done or two and done or three and done, can't get back in the UFC or, regain that level of momentum that I've had. I've noticed that like a lot of the high level guys who have really good success in the UFC started when they, were like 10-0 or 10-1 or 11-1 or, stuff like that because they have the experience. They've experienced the loss. They've experienced all types of wins. They've experienced different kind of looks from weird individuals when they have to fight. Like for instance, Kamaru Usman, he's what 22-1 or 21-1, but he's experienced so much before he got into UFC on tough. And then when he got into UFC, he fought basically everybody in the division before he became the champ. So now nobody seems like a real threat to him.
Well, that's it. You mentioned it there, and he's fought, I think, nearly everyone in the rankings that is below him. It's incredible. I think the only matchup is Wonderboy. There we go. Yeah,
it's the only matchup. But realistically speaking, we already know how that goes. Sure, we can match it up, but like I mean, Wonderboy has had 2 fights to wrestlers, and we already know how that goes. So there's nothing new. We get it.
Yeah, exactly. So I presume you are a fan of MMA. You like to watch it as well?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like MMA is like watching MMA on a weekly basis is like watching literally history. Of course, it's literally history in the making. Like you watch it and like you learn something new that you can potentially do in a fight. You learn something new that you learn new strategies that like new guys like think of on the fly, like on accident, and you're able to apply that later on. Like for instance, people never really started to use cage wrestling until they seen Khabib. People never really started to use cage to strike until they seen maybe like the Showtime Pettis kick or the Showtime Pettis like Superman punch. People never really like understood the octagon the way it's supposed to be understood. Cage awareness. Pressuring a guy for the duration of a fight, throwing like a wild flurry and able to throw somebody completely off with that flurry. And I feel like every week that the UFC was showing fights up until the holidays, people were really evolving and learning more and more and more about how the sport really isn't even at its prime yet. There's so much more that you can learn, and you can see like how MMA fighters are starting to evolve even better. Like I don't think anybody in the 1990s era could hang with anybody now ever in the UFC. I think they would all get finished. Like Frank Mir would get finished. Randy Couture would get finished. And this is not like to bash them because they're really talented. They were really talented in their era, but this is like a new evolved era of mixed martial artists. So I think that they wouldn't be able to hang with our era, my era, this generation.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. It definitely evolved throughout the time. 2021 was a fantastic year for MMA. It grew significantly, especially UFC. I want you to give me 3. It could be wild. 3 wild predictions of what's going to happen in the year of 2022 for MMA.
3 wild predictions.
Doesn't have to be true. Anything that just wild. Just has to be wild.
I think MMA fighters will probably get paid more. I'm starting to notice that like the pay gap is like one of the most talked about things in MMA currently, and I think there's going to be one organization, even if it's not the UFC, that steps up and really starts paying fighters the way they should be getting paid. Realistically speaking, because sure, boxing is an older sport, and it's been around a lot longer than MMA, but MMA fighters do a lot more. MMA fighters have to promote a lot more. MMA fighters have to take more damage. MMA fighters have to train a lot harder than a boxer does, realistically speaking. And I'm not bashing boxers because at the end of the day, boxers put in the work, they put in the time, they put in the effort. But, at the end of the day, they're not getting head kicked. They're not getting double legged. They're not getting ground and pounded, They're not getting submitted. They're not getting choked out. They're not losing like oxygen to their brain from, they're not losing these things. Another thing, I think, maybe MMA might eventually become an Olympic sport. I feel like, sure, combat sambo is like the closest thing to MMA right now in like the Olympics, but I think like MMA itself, like in the Olympics, like I think that could be something that would be pretty cool without the gi, you know. Um, and third thing, I think this next era, I think this next generation of MMA fighters, um, the generation of the MMA fighters who are getting into the UFC at around 23, from the ages of like 20 to 26, are going to be the best generation of mixed martial artists present. Because the sport has evolved so rapidly that it doesn't have a choice. Like they don't have a choice but to be the best, you know.
Mhm. And lastly, I want to ask you a prediction of the champion in the UFC at the end of the year. So we'll go down in weights.
Okay.
So we'll start off with heavyweight.
Okay, heavyweight. They gonna mess around and make Derek Lewis the champ.
Sorry, who?
Derek Lewis.
Derek Lewis as champion at the end of 22.
They gonna mess around and make Derek Lewis the champ. They gonna mess around. I feel like people sleep on Derek Lewis, but he's really good. He's very strategic. I mean, he talks very funny. He talks goofy. He talks like he doesn't know what he's talking about. But when he's finishing, dude, he has the most finishes at heavyweight. Like people need to recognize that. People got to put respect on his name. Well, we got 205.
We're light heavyweight.
If it's not, yeah, if it's not Derek.
Oh.
Yeah. If it's not Derek Lewis, it'll be John Jones. I think personally, that's just my opinion. Who's the light heavyweight champ? It's
Glover
Giannis
Chisera.
Lost to Glover Chisera.
Yeah.
Who would be next? Oh, that weird guy. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Jiri Prochaska.
Yeah, Jiri Prochaska.
Yeah.
With the thing on his head. He's so awkward, but he's really finishing dudes. I think he could definitely give Glover a run for his money. If Glover isn't on his toes for that fight. Middleweight, we have Israel Adesanya. I think Izzy stays. Kamaru, if Kamaru doesn't retire, I think Kamaru stays. I think he's gonna retire soon, but I think Kamaru stays. He might be the champ for maybe like half of the rest of this year. Might mess around and retire. 55. Who's the 55 champ?
Charles Oliveira just fought against Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, Charles stays for a little bit. I don't think he'll lose to Gaethje. I think
Islam Makhachev is coming through as well.
I think Islam is very tough. I think Islam is very tough. Like very tough. He's one of those guys who's very seasoned. He fights rounds. He has no problem fighting rounds to win a fight. And he's a big finisher. But I think Du Bronx has a lot more IQ. It's no how to mix it up, He's not afraid to be like Makhachev. So that could definitely be a big I feel like that could be a big determined to be the champ. 45 we have
Alexander Volkanovski.
45. I say Max Holloway brings it back. I say Max. I say Max gets championship, get his title back. 35.
Aljamain Sterling.
Aljamain Sterling loses. He loses to Petrion. I think fairly easy. I think fairly easy. And at 25 we have Moreno. I think Moreno keeps it unless he loses to Figueroa again. Unless Figueroa beats him. But I don't think Figueroa is going to beat him. Figueroa kind of doesn't have any heart. Who's that? No, that was the flyweights. That was it. Yeah.
Would you like to do the women's?
Oh, I don't know. I don't want to get into women's MMA. I think I don't know, man. I want to get into women's MMA, but
no. Okay.
I think Nunes. I mean, not Nunes. Nama Nunes. Rose. Doug Rose keeps her. I think she keeps her title.
I hope so.
I think Amanda Nunes, if she doesn't tighten up, she loses her second title. She still is a champ. She might mess around and lose to the girl she just lost to again. the
Juliana Pena.
yeah, Juliana Pena. Yeah, the Venezuelan vixen, you know.
And then, of course, Shevchenko. I don't see anyone beating Shevchenko.
Shevchenko, yeah, I don't see anybody beating Shevchenko. Not for a while. Not for
But
a long time.
that's what we said when Nunes fought Pena. We didn't see anyone beating Nunes, and it's a crazy sport, man.
Nunes hasn't fought in a very long time. She just had a kid, so I can only imagine she's actually not been training. You know, like I can only imagine how much she's actually in the gym. Like when you become the champ, people like to put you on a shelf. They like to put you on a shelf until you actually have somebody who's contender level worthy. And I feel like for Amanda Nunes, she's really been running through people so fast that like there's no one who's really contender level worthy except Juliana Pena. Mentally tough, gritty. She knows how to stay there. She knows how to be in a fight. She knows she knows what she needs to do when it's time to do it. So I think that's a very big aspect to mixed martial arts, the mental aspect at least.
Well, thank you so much, Dilano. It's been an absolute pleasure to be joined by you today. I wish you the best of luck in 2022. And what a fantastic fight it was against Marcus Edwards. It was a fantastic title defense. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I hope you had a great Happy New Year and Christmas with your family.
You too, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
No problem. All right.